Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about the world of AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and talk first about potentially a possible dream match between former AEW World Champion Jon Moxley and former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion himself, Will Ospreay, because former IWGP Heavyweight Champion Will Ospreay recently sent out a message teasing a dream match with AEW star Jon Moxley. Now, Ospreay recently retained his Rev Pro Undisputed British Heavyweight Championship after defeating Ricky Knight Jr. at Rev Pro UK's high stakes event. I'll get there in the end. Post-match, Ospreay and his new United Empire stablemates, Aussie Open, brutally assaulted Shota Umino. For the unaware, Umino and Moxley were closely associated in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, taking to Twitter, Ospreay shared an image of himself and Aussie Open assaulting Umino. The Japanese star wore a Death Riders jacket gifted to Umino by Moxley as a Christmas present in 2019. Now, Ospreay stated that Moxley can't help Umino from the beatdown, probably implying that maybe, just maybe, we could see Moxley versus Ospreay happen in the near future. Now, Moxley versus Ospreay is a dream match fans have been clamoring to see for years now, and now that forbidden door between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling has been blown wide open, even though it was as soon as Moxley signed with New Japan because he had it in his contract that he could work there, there is a huge chance that Moxley and Ospreay could soon become a reality. It's just a case of where could it happen, in All Elite Wrestling or in New Japan Pro Wrestling, possibly in the United States. The two could possibly come face-to-face at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Autumn Break on September 25th in Dallas, where Ospreay is scheduled to wrestle a tag team match. As far as Moxley in the more immediate future, he is going to be teaming up with Eddie Kingston this coming Friday on AEW Rampage Grand Slam to face off against New Japan Pro Wrestling star Minoru Suzuki and former IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion Lance Archer in a lights-out tag team match, which I'm very, very excited to see. So, as far as Moxley versus Ospreay, is that going to happen? I think it's inevitable that it will happen. Like I said before, it's just a case of which company will it take place in. Right now, I think it's far more likely that it would take place in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it would be a New Japan Strong or New Japan, United States based event, because that's where Ospreay is going to be based out of right now. He's not going to be traveling over to Japan. I think it's highly likely that match will happen there. As far as could it happen in AEW? Of course it could. I think that, Moxley's kind of situation in AEW right now is that whilst he's not in the main event picture anymore, because that's dominated by Kenny Omega and soon to be Bryan Danielson, Hangman Page, other names coming in there, Christian Cage, I think that Moxley's kind of story in AEW right now is that he's just this AEW guy that's bringing over all of this New Japan talent, and he's feuding with all of this New Japan talent, whether that's Kojima, whether that's obviously Minoru Suzuki, whether that's feuding with Lance Archer, whether it might be Will Ospreay next. We know the Tanahashi match, I think that was originally the match they wanted to do at All Out. They couldn't do it for whatever reason, and Kojima was instead the name that they decided to go with. But that Tanahashi match for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship is going to happen in the future, and I think that one will happen in AEW. As far as Ospreay, now at some point, considering he's based in the United States, you would think that Ospreay coming into AEW will happen at some point in the future. As to when, it's got to be the right moment, hasn't it? Possibly for a pay-per-view. Maybe it does happen at, say, Full Gear later on this year in November, or maybe they hold off and wait off till Revolution next year. I don't know. I think that Ospreay will, at some point, appear in All Elite Wrestling, but I think in the more immediate future, Moxley versus Ospreay, if indeed that dream match does happen, will take place on a New Japan event first. But look, these things can and will bleed over into AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. They've got a very strong relationship right now, and I wouldn't rule out anything. Every time we think we know what the Forbidden Door has awaiting for us, it just throws up something else. So, knowing this, I mean, Will Ospreay could show up in Queens on Wednesday or Friday night, and suddenly then Moxley versus Ospreay's, the seeds are planted there. I don't know. Anything can and will happen when it comes to the Forbidden Door and AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll see Ospreay and Moxley in an AEW ring before a New Japan ring. Who knows about that? Let's move on and talk about Rampage last Friday, because AEW Rampage drew a new lowest viewership dip on TNT, but the key demo rating was up from the prior week. Now, Friday's taped edition of AEW Rampage drew 642,000 viewers on TNT, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. Now, this is down over 4% from last week's taped Rampage episode, which drew 670,000 viewers for the post All Out show. Friday's taped Rampage episode drew a 0.28 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic, but this is up over 3% from last week's taped episode, which drew a 0.27. So we'll say it's up just, but it's nearly flat. The 0.28 key demo rating represents 367,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demographic. This is up, as I mentioned, from the 347,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demo from the prior week. But Rampage did rank number 2 for the night in the cable top 150 with that key demo, so it does go to show that Friday's just a dead night when it comes to cable anything, let alone pro wrestling. Rampage ranked number 53rd in the night for viewership for the night on cable, tying with CNN's lead with Jake Tapper. This is down from the prior week's number 47 ranking. Now, Friday's Rampage, of course, on TNT drew the lowest audience for the show so far, but the key demo rating was up. It looks like this is probably where Rampage will settle at, unless it's a major show like this coming Friday. That kind of 640, 650, 660, 670. In that 600 range, I think is probably where we're going to see it going forward. Again, it's not an ideal spot. It's not an ideal spot. It's a 10 p.m. show, and I think in the very near future, it will transition into being a 2-hour show, even though that would take it from 10 to midnight, like those Friday Night Dynamite shows were in the summer. I think that's probably where we're going to be headed when it comes to Rampage because of the size of the roster. And make no mistake, some people might look at this and think it's a bad thing for AEW. Oh, it's bad. It's the lowest ever viewership in the show history, and the viewership is down, all that kind of stuff. Realistically, I think Rampage, in terms of the ratings, has probably exceeded AEW and TNT's expectations so far. And I think that it's like the Raw situation, isn't it? People can talk about the Raw ratings and the demographic and the viewership figures, but in reality, USA Network knows nothing else they could put on during that period of time would bring in the ratings or bring in the viewership that Monday Night Raw does. And I think TNT or Warner Media, when it moves to TBS next year, will probably know the same thing. Nothing else we could put on during that period of time. What else are they going to put on? A film? Like they do after Dynamite every single week? Or unless it's Impractical Jokers, I don't think they've got much else that they could put on during that period of time that isn't live sports, which would outdraw AEW programming. So they'll be very happy with that. And again, this coming week, obviously the viewership will be way, way, way up because of the Rampage Grand Slam. Even though it's taped once again, the ratings will continue to rise once again. So I think they'll be happy with it. And like I said, look, in terms of the cable top 150 with that key demographic, they were second for the night, even though they came on the air at 10 p.m., which is not bad whatsoever. They're hardly in prime time, like an 8 p.m. to 10 like they are on Wednesday nights. So I think they'll be happy with that. Again, this is probably where they're going to settle. I think this is most likely where they're going to settle right now. Those first couple of shows, of course, the debut episode, of course, CM Punk's one with over 1 million viewers and that just insane 0.53 rating in that demographic. This is probably where they're going to settle in right now. We're talking 690, 670, 640, 660 once again. It's in that range they're probably going to settle into. Of course, the live shows will probably be a bit different. You'd expect a higher viewership because live TV just delivers a higher viewership and a stronger demo rating. But overall, I think AEW and most importantly TNT will be happy with these numbers, and they'll be expecting something much stronger this Friday night, of course, and Wednesday night for that live Dynamite Grand Slam show from Arthur Ashe Stadium. Like I've said several times, I really do think it's going to deliver the highest viewership and maybe the highest rating in Dynamite history and company history. I really do think that. I think it's going to beat the debut episode. If it doesn't, I think it will come very, very, very close, considering that the post-all-out edition of Dynamite did 1.3 million viewers, which is 100,000 off. I think this one, considering the card, considering the venue, considering the stars, considering everything that goes into this show and the crowd, I think it's going to, I really do think it's going to blow the debut episode out of the water, which is going to be fascinating because AEW feels like every single week they're breaking new ground and setting new records. So it's a very exciting time to be an AEW fan right now. Let's talk about Full Gear. I nearly said let's switch gears. That would have been such a great transition there. But let's talk about Full Gear. There's been a bit of confusion, hasn't there, about the date and the location for Full Gear. Well, the 2021 AEW Full Gear pay-per-view is set to take place now in Minneapolis, Minnesota. As has been noted, Full Gear was originally planned for Saturday, November 6 in St. Louis, but the date was changed to Saturday, November 13 due to the big UFC 268 pay-per-view taking place on November 6. AEW President Tony Khan indicated during the post-all-out media scrum that St. Louis would no longer be the location, and Minneapolis has been rumored. Well, in an update, Fightful Select, which of course is their Patreon service, be sure to check that out, has reported that Minneapolis is the current internal plan for the new Full Gear location. There's no word yet on what venue will be used, but of course once we know that, we'll keep you updated here on the channel. On a related note, many AEW talents were scheduled to appear at the big event convention in New York on November 13 before Full Gear was moved to that date. Word now is that AEW worked and went above and beyond to make the situation right to the promoters of the convention, and that AEW talent will now be appearing at the big event the following day on Sunday, November 14. So they will be still appearing there, which again, good for them. Good for them. And you know, it's the little things like that that really wins people over. When you hear those stories, it's public relations. It's just good PR. It's good PR stuff like it's treating people right and making sure that people get what they paid for and make sure they deliver what they promoted. Heaven, you know, who would think? What a novel concept, actually delivering on your promises. Amazing what AEW does. So Minneapolis is going to be the location for Full Gear. Of course, it was smart to move it from a different night from the UFC. I think there's a big boxing fight scheduled for that night too. So it makes a lot of sense. I like the Saturday pay-per-view format, to be honest with you. I know that they've switched to Sundays for those big ones, but Full Gear is going to stay on a Saturday. And I like that. I'm very excited for Full Gear. I know a lot of people were hoping to go to St. Louis. I know some people were going to go there, but now plans have changed. But it is what it is. It's what it is. These things happen. And interesting, these big pay-per-views have just been delivering on just a massive scale this year for AEW, whether it was Revolution, Double or Nothing, of course, All Out. So fascinating to see what they've got planned for Full Gear later on this year. Let's switch gears and go back to Rampage briefly, because Ricky Starks, you saw Ricky Starks appear on commentary last week, and it looks like FTW champion Ricky Starks is actually set to replace Mark Henry at the AEW Rampage commentary booth moving forward. Last Friday's taped Rampage episode saw Starks fill in for the World's Strongest Man, joining Taz, Excalibur, and Chris Jericho. Easy for me to say, Chris Jericho for commentary on the show. Starks appeared on the Wrestle Talk podcast yesterday and said the change will be a permanent one for here on out. He said, quote, "I am definitely proud of AEW, the work that I've done in AEW, and the work that I continue to do. And the fact that I think so much that they appreciate me, that they made me a permanent commentator for Rampage, replacing Mark. So I love that fact. I love the fact that the work that I've done with Sting, Darby, and all of those things in such a small time frame will last on forever. I want more, though. I really do. I really want to push myself more and really explore the depths of my talent and get out of my comfort zone a bit." So Starks previously made commentary appearances or guest commentary appearances on AEW Dark with Taz and Excalibur, but it looks like he's going to be the permanent fourth member of the AEW Rampage broadcast team going forward. Now, Mark Henry did still work Friday's Rampage show, did some backstage interviews. He's acting like he's going to be like the host of Rampage going forward, which actually, in fairness, I think that's a much better role for him. Not to say he was terrible at commentary, but he just didn't really fit. I thought they would give him more time, frankly, but I'm surprised that they decided to make this switch so quickly. Again, I think Mark Henry is much more suited to being that host figure and not the commentary role. But the big response to this would be, when I saw it, is why make the change in the first place? If you're going to say, look, Mark Henry should just be the host, go, okay, he should just be the host, have a three-man booth or a three-person booth. To be honest with you, I'd much rather it just be Excalibur and Taz. They have great chemistry. They do a great job on Dark. I understand the reason to have Jericho on the show because it's a draw, it's a name. Having Chris Jericho on the broadcast every single week, I get it. I'm not the biggest fan of Jericho's commentary, it must be said. I was early in the pandemic. Him and Shivani did a really good job. And Jericho was much more subdued during that period of time and putting people over and not screaming and shouting and just ranting and raving into the microphone. Being a character, he picked his moments and he was far more palatable, I think, at that point. Whereas since he's kind of transitioned into this Rampage commentator, he just kind of screams and shouts into the microphone and goes like that. You know, it's difficult to listen to. And just with the four-person booth, everyone's trying to get their stuff in. Everyone's trying to get their opinions in, and it's difficult. It's very difficult to coordinate, and it's very difficult just to have that sort of flow that kind of works so well for pro wrestling commentary. I just prefer the two-person booth. That's me. I'm fine with the three-person booth, but four just feels way too much and way too unnecessary. And again, no disrespect to Ricky Starks, I just don't see why he needs to be in there. I really don't. If you go, look, Mark Henry can be the host, great. He can be the host. Have the 3-person booth. It works just fine. And I don't really understand that. I really don't. Ricky Starks is fine. I wasn't exactly blown away by his commentary anyway. If you were saying like, okay, we want to get CM Punk on Rampage every week, so we're going to have Taz, Excalibur, Jericho, and Punk, I would go, right, I get why you would do that, because Punk's excellent at commentary. Excellent at commentary. I would totally get that. Or if it was like Don Callis, I'd go, right, I get it. I understand why you would do that. But for Ricky Starks, I don't really understand. And I'm a big Ricky Starks fan. I think he's got an excellent future. But I just find the move just a bit weird. Very weird. Speaking of Punk, CM Punk has asked fans which ring attire he should wear for his match against Powerhouse Hobbs at Rampage Grand Slam on Friday. Now, AEW star CM Punk took to Twitter late on Monday to ask fans to choose his ring attire for his upcoming match against Powerhouse Hobbs. Of course, Punk will face Hobbs during Friday's 2-hour Grand Slam edition of AEW Rampage, which of course is going to be held at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York City. Punk has given fans 2 options, namely Long Boys and CM Trunks, along with the caption, "Choose your own adventure." Fans then had the option for their choice of attire. It must be said that the vote was unanimously in favor of the Trunks over the Long Boys. Earlier this month, Punk donned long tights during his AEW debut match against Darby Allin at the pay-per-view. It was his first pro wrestling match, of course, in over 7 years. Prior to the match, Punk teased from choosing from several different attires, including his signature Chicago-starred trunks and kick pads, but instead he went with the long tights instead. I hope he goes back to the trunks, to be honest with you, because that's CM Punk that I think most people associate with. Not that he's always worn that. If you go back and watch his Ring of Honor days, he was in fight shorts for a long period of time. So I wasn't completely put off by it, I must be said. I just thought, okay, it's Punk's next evolution. That's what he's going to do. But maybe he'll be back in trunks. He likes to give the fans what they want, and I guess they want CM Punk to be CM Punk of old. So maybe CM Trunks will return on Friday. But it's something else to tune in for, right? But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. I don't know what I was doing with my hands there for a second. But be sure to smash a like on the video. Really just help us out here on YouTube, got the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.